So recently on Piers Morgan's show, he did a panel discussing Democratic Socialists of America and a few things that they had in their platform and all of the controversy that was with the platform. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the clip.
On a Fox News Truth or False segment. Let's take a look.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
So, I mean, Marianne, according to that, the DSA wants to abolish borders, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, ICE and prisons, and give full amnesty to illegal immigrants. Briahna Joy Gray, and we'll come to you, Briahna, commented these were fundamentally good and correct positions. Do you think they're fundamentally good and correct positions, Marianne Williamson?
Well, I think that the Democratic Party has to stand for a kind of intelligent middle. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, you know, there are going to be people who have rather extreme positions. But we need to remember that the American people are not waking up every night, lying awake, worrying about that. What they're worried about is the fact that they can't pay their bills. They're worried about the fact that they don't have food for groceries, they don't have food for gas, they don't know if they can treat their own medical conditions, they don't know if they can send their kids to college. So when it comes to after the primaries, the Democratic Party has to get on the same page of knowing that we have to deliver for the American people a compelling alternative to Donald Trump and not let this squabbling so separate us that the American people think that that's what the Democratic Party is. We need to keep on policies that will help people, that we can tell people how we're going to pay for them, how that's going to fix their lives, and yes, what we are going to say in response to those who criticize it. There will be people on the fringe in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party saying extreme things, but we as Democrats need to make sure that we are talking to the American people about things that will fix their lives in a way that could actually win in 2028 and not go into the kinds of extremes that could make some people feel that we're on the left as extreme as some people are on the right.
So just to be clear, you would not agree that those policy ideas would be fundamentally good and correct positions. You would view them as extreme.
I think that they are extreme statements about conversations, some of which are legitimate to have. But we need to have an intelligent, legitimate conversations which do not include such extreme positions that it turns people off before they are willing to listen to what you're really trying to say.
Okay, Briahna Joy Gray, you like these positions. You want to get rid of borders, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, ICE, prisons, give amnesty to illegal immigrants. You're exactly the kind of whack job that many people are saying are the problem in the party. Not my words, their words. Why would you support the kind of policies which instinctively most Americans, when they hear them, think whoever thinks that is a whack job?
I mean, you can say Americans instinctively feel whatever you say they feel, Piers, but the reality is that polling suggests quite the opposite. The Democratic Socialists of America are polling better than both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So I think the question that needs to be asked is of traditional establishment corporate Republicans and Dems, why their party is so tarnished, why their brand is so bad, that ideas that do seem relatively novel to the average American ear sound a lot more palatable than two parties who say, fund ICE, who's literally murdering American mothers and nurses in the street. Let's have a foreign policy that intentionally creates pressure on the borders. Let's ignore the domestic concerns of Americans who have been struggling for decades with health concerns, with health care, with being able to provide basic needs like education and housing. I think Americans are increasingly aware that this is a sort of three-card Monty, where they're asked repeatedly to look over there at the scary thing when you have a government in office currently that ran on and is actively trying to dismantle the Department of Education, dismantle our response to disease. We're in the middle of what is being called a poop pandemic because nobody can even buy bagged veggies anymore in the United States of America. And when people like Zora Mamdani or Oliver Larkin, who's here on the panel with us, offer straightforward, common sense solutions, or even old time ideas like getting rid of the Senate, which is wildly unrepresentative. Does it make common sense to the average American that a state like Vermont should have the exact same representation as a state like California, the world's fifth biggest economy with 30 million people? No, absolutely not. So I think when you get out of the clickbait Fox News segments with Megan Romer, who I also just recently had on my own show, Bad Faith, by the way, and had an opportunity to have a more fulsome discussion, as Americans hear more about these ideas, they're only going to become more popular.
How many illegal immigrants would you let into the country in your brave new world?
I think what you need to do is be asking questions about why both Democratic and Republican administrations have a sanctions campaign against Venezuela and other countries in the global South that
Well, hang on, that wasn't my question. Briahna,
This is the fundamental framing problem that people keep.
So it's funny how they never want to talk about why we have a mass illegal immigration problem here in the first place, and that was what Briahna was bringing up on the panel. But of course, Piers Morgan does not want to talk about that. And there's also another person on the panel, Joe Walsh, who was in Congress, was a Republican, Tea Party movement type of Republican. So it is going to be a little interesting to see what he has to say about DSA, given that he was part of the extreme right that is right now running the country. So I'll play the rest of the clip. I think they're still discussing immigration and DSA's position on ICE and illegal immigration.
Briahna,
Briahna, yes.
Simple question. How many illegal immigrants would you let in to the United States under your brave new world?
And how many undocumented people would you have Donald Trump or any Democratic president drive
Why can't you
out of
answer
their
my
country
question?
through a crushing sanctions program like the ones
Why
that
can't
have
you
been
answer
implemented on
my
Venezuela, like the blockade that's being implemented on Cuba, like the war on drugs that has
Briahna, you're
been
not answering my
implemented
question.
below our border? These are questions you never want to answer, Piers, because you act like the problem magically materializes.
Why don't you just
when
answer my question? It's my
convenient to you.
show.
We should live in a world. Do you
It's
agree,
my
Piers, that
show.
we should live in a world where
I
we get
ask
to the
the
root?
questions.
No, I don't know that it works that way, Piers. Do you want to live in a world where you get to the root
It does
of the
work that
problem,
way.
or do you want to keep hand-wringing and passing the buck and passing blame around? Is the ultimate goal
Why can't you
making sure
answer
that
a straightforward
Americans
question?
and people in other countries are able to live their lives in
Briahna,
their nations
let's
of
try one more
origin
time.
in
Let's
peace
try one
and
more time.
prosperity?
Let's try what listen, we're all into utopia. We're just trying to work out how to get there.
Then why don't you want to work
Under
toward it, Piers?
Biden,
Do you agree with these crushing sanctions programs that are the root cause of immigration?
What I agree
Do you agree with them?
Hang on. Here's my position on immigration in the United States. And then I'll
Please.
ask you one more time to answer my question. Under Barack Obama, 3 million people got deported. He was the greatest
Yes.
deporter of immigrants in the history of the United States as a president, right? Way more than Trump. Nobody on the left gave a damn. No one on the left
That's
even
not true.
really knows
the left,
number.
Piers,
Right? It became
the left calls him the
Actually,
deporter
no,
in
hang
chief
on,
as a
hang on.
criticism all the time.
Hang on.
Liberals didn't care,
Almost
but the left did care.
Hang on, Briahna. No one on the left cared because it was Saint Barack. Okay,
That is absolutely not
Biden
true, but go
comes
ahead.
along.
So Obama was criticized by the left for supporting and the person that he appointed as the deporter in chief is now the borders are under Trump, Tom Homan. So Obama was just as much to the right on immigration as Trump is now, and so further right that the Green Party did run on, like when they ran in 2012, uh, when they ran Joe Stein, they did run on a much more progressive immigration position than the Democrats. There were other third party candidates that ran. Obama had primary challengers in 2012 that had more left immigration positions than he did. So again, Pierce is lying about what Obama's, whether the left criticized Obama or whether uh, because like a lot of people on the right pretend that the left never criticized Obama or Biden during their administrations, when the left, like those presidents, were not should not be considered left leaning. They are, if not center, right wing presidents. And uh like when you compare Obama's immigration approach, it's not just as bad as Trump's right now, but it is similar approach. And Trump's current immigration policy is being done with uh policy that's similar to what Obama did, and kind of got the ideas from him.
Hang on, please stop making speeches. Then Biden comes along and he allows up to 10 million people to cross the border illegally into the United States. Then Trump replaces him, partly because of what Biden did on the border. That's why he gets re-elected. And he immediately closes the southern border. Your view, unless I'm wrong, is that you basically reopen the border to whoever wants to come in. And my question for you, for the last time, if you don't want to answer it, it's fine, is under your plan, how many would you let in over the border illegally into the United States? It's a simple question.
My view is that it is deeply naive and frankly sort of dim-witted to believe that the solution to a global immigration crisis, which is only going to get worse because of climate change and because of the kind of international destabilization that you've seen Trump instigate with these wars in Iran and that have broadly trickled through the entire Middle East.
Can you answer the question, Briahna?
I am answering the question, but the problem is, Piers, you persistently don't want to hear answers to the question that don't fall into your gotcha cycle.
You're not answering the question.
And some questions, Piers, require a more sophisticated answer than let's throw up a wall on the border that may or may not get to the root of the crisis.
All right, I've tried. We all know why you don't want to put a number on it. Because under your utopia,
because it's absurd,
unlimited.
because there is no number.
Anyone
The goal is to
in.
stop immigration. Is it not, Piers? Is or is not the goal to stop immigration?
No, your goal is to stop the concept of illegal immigration.
No,
you would
that's
let
what
everybody
you're saying
in.
My goal is.
And
I'm being very clear
by the
about
way,
what my goal is, Piers.
as Ronald Reagan once said, very rightly, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Let me bring in Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, you've been grimacing. I don't think I've ever seen anyone pull more faces in a panel in a sustained period of time than you just had. So, look, this is the problem. Utopia is great until you actually hear how you're supposed to get there, and then people don't want to explain because the argument collapses.
Look, Piers, the problem is... And again, I got all the respect in the world for Briahna. She's right about a lot of things. Both parties suck. We need a revolution in this country. Amen to all of that. But you've got to just simply answer a question and defend the position. And when you go off and just sound like a politician reciting talking points and not answering Pierce's question, it just doesn't help your cause. Look, Piers, at the very beginning of this,
For most of this panel, Joe Walsh hasn't said anything but just shaking his head. And now that he's actually talking, I instantly don't agree with anything he's saying, of course. But uh, I know like the panel isn't about, they're not really discussing Israel, but Joe Walsh does support Israel. He's uh, a supporter of Israel and wants the Democratic Party to move towards the center, which I don't really know what he even means by that at this point, because the Democratic Party is already uh, more of a moderate right wing version of the Republican Party. So I don't really know what he means when he says that he wants the Democratic Party to be a big tent party. But then he kind of like took a shot at Briahna, saying she didn't answer the question, when she is right. It does require a more longer explanation, because if the right really cared about illegal immigration, as they call it, then they would want to lift the sanctions and stop all these regime change wars, and then we would stop having this so-called illegal immigration. And we wouldn't have to they wouldn't have to complain about this issue, and it wouldn't be a problem. But of course, the right, the neocon right, loves these wars and wants them to continue. So we're going to keep dealing with this issue until uh, they are out of power or someone decides that they actually want to create a real solution to the immigration problem.
You asked, right, about these positions that the DSA has. And the simple answer is the vast majority of the American people do not support open borders. The vast majority of the American people do not want to defund the police. The vast majority of the American people don't want to get rid of the United States Senate or the Supreme Court or the presidency. Briahna is right, and the Democratic Socialists are right in that the establishment sucks. I come from the Tea Party. Baby, that was an anti-establishment movement. The Democrats, Piers, are having their anti-establishment movement. Good thing. It's coming from the far left. The far left just needs to be honest about these policies. Most Americans don't support these policies. And Republicans, I used to do this, do a really good job of tagging the whole Democratic policy or party with these policies. And Democrats need to defend them pretty damn quickly.
I'm never going to understand the argument that centrists make where, or even liberals, where they say that what DSA supports isn't popular among most voters. It isn't popular with this group or this group or in this, like after DSA won a lot of primaries in New York City, they said like these candidates wouldn't be able to win in a swing state, or uh, this particular state they wouldn't be able to win in. And I don't think any of that matters. And that is because when you look historically at different movements or liberation movements or left wing movements, uh, they were never popular. Uh, the movement to end slavery was not popular, but we did it because people decided that it was a moral position to end slavery. It was a moral position to support desegregation and all these other things. So I don't really like, and it's another example of like liberals supporting, claiming that they support every civil rights movement, but also not supporting the current civil rights movement that we have right now. They say that we can't support Palestine because it's not popular with Zionists or uh, certain groups of people. They're not. It's not popular, so we can't support Palestinian liberation, or we can't support defunding the police because it's not popular. Even though police are uh, killing unarmed people of color, it's not popular to support defunding the police, even though ICE is now like over. The majority of Americans now support abolishing ICE while they uh, are killing people, and they're killing U.S. citizens. So people are more people are becoming aware of the crimes that are being done by ICE agents. So I don't really. I think the argument's very stupid, and that's the argument that centrists continue to make, and leftists cannot buy that argument and need to push back against that, uh, because leftist positions become popular the moment that we inform people and educate people about what we support.
Yeah, I
Joe, the
agree. It
majority of
reminds me of some of the
yeah.
more lunatic. Oh, hang on, Briahna. I want to bring in Oliver Larkin. You're a Democratic Socialist candidate in South Florida. What is your view about what should be done at the border then? Would you reopen it? Because obviously Trump has closed it effectively. Would you reopen the border and allow anyone?
So I'm gonna skip to this part. So here is where Briahna Gray and Joe Walsh debate more, I think.
Popular with left and left of center people in Democratic Party, but they're not popular with all Americans. And when you put their policy positions in
by
front of
what
America,
metric?
most Americans say no. Most.
Joe, this is what's so frustrating, because when it comes to an issue like Medicare for all, that 88% of Democratic voters support and 49% of Republicans, half of Republicans also support, we're never doing all of this alarmism about how, wow, there's this really popular policy that we just can't get the two major parties on board with. When we're talking about stopping funding to the genocide in Gaza, which again is a majoritarian issue against funding Israel, there's none of this hand-wringing about, oh my gosh, we
Briahna,
need
would
to
you
do what the people
defund the
says,
Pentagon?
what the
Briahna,
people say,
would
and
you
do populism.
defund?
It's only
Briahna, would you defund the Pentagon? Would you
Absolutely.
defund the Pentagon?
Walsh, I want you to ask yourself the question why you have a Pentagon that has failed, what, 6, 7, 8 now
I asked a
consecutive
simple
audits,
question.
that
Pentagon's
loses
got problems,
billions.
but would
Wait a
you
minute.
defund it? Would you get
Joe,
rid of America's entire
First of
Defense
all,
Department?
you guys have to stop with this absurdism that to defund something, to decrease the funding of something, is the same thing as to abolish it. When you want to abolish
No, it's not to
something, say
decrease.
abolish.
I'm talking about
When you wanna say
defunding. When you say
you
defund the police,
And
when
wait,
you say,
we live in a
Briahna,
country
defund
that
the police,
defunds-
you're talking
Joe,
about getting rid of
Joe.
the police.
Joe, we live in a country that defunds social services every year. We have a government right now that is defunding healthcare every year. And there is, again,
No.
no
No,
hand-wringing
I don't
about
think
that.
you
But the
understand.
Pentagon, which wastes billions of dollars, has an
That's not
unlimited
defund.
large budget that literally loses billions of dollars
I'm
every
here.
year. You want to keep
I'm
giving
here.
money to this
Briahna,
institution?
stop
Take
talking.
Okay, it's about as far as I'll go into this, uh, because it just is getting more stupider, and like it's just crazy watching two white men talk about the Pentagon and how important it is that we keep supporting ICE and police, and uh, the Republicans in Congress want to take your Social Security, they want to take your Medicare, and they are sitting here talking about how important it is that we keep supporting Israel and all of these things that do absolutely nothing to help you. And I'm assuming when I say you, I'm assuming it's a working class person that is watching this that can somewhat relate to what I'm saying, and how uh, none of the things that these right wingers are talking about is actually trying to make things better for the average person when they say they want to keep funding ICE and police and uh, these endless wars, and they want to complain about mass legal immigration. And uh, to be clear, like these illegal immigrants that they call them, and like undocumented immigrants is what uh the better word to describe them as. And undocumented immigrants are working class people, and to say that they're not working class people is just very ignorant, and is another argument that people on the right have made, that they just act like these undocumented immigrants are not working class people and that they're not deserving of health care or housing like everyone else is, even though they're a living human being like the rest of us. But I this is about as far into the video as I will go. But uh Brianna, she definitely like all the points she made amazing points on the panel, and I didn't go as far into where Oliver Larkin like chimed in. He did run for Congress. Unfortunately, he didn't win, but he has become a more of a high-profile Democratic socialist, prominent DSA member, because he went on Fox News and was able to defend DSA. So him and Brianna, they did well with defending the DSA positions, and hopefully people were able to become more informed on what DSA actually supports and what democratic socialism actually is, and not just right-wing propaganda.